we put it on the projector, and when we started watching it, we went, "Oh my God, we've got to get this preserved in some way. We've got to capture it somehow."
Welcome to the Beaufort County Arts Council Artcast. I'm your host, Elena Boyer, coming to you from the historic Turnage Theatre here in Washington, North Carolina. If you're new here, welcome to Artcast, the podcast brought to you by the Beaufort County Arts Council, where creativity meets community. Join us as we delve into the vibrant world of the arts, exploring everything from visual arts to performing arts and beyond. Today with me, I have President of the Historic Port of Washington Project, Ray Midgett of Washington, North Carolina, and our visual arts curator, Bronté Labbé, here at the Beaufort County Arts Council. Today, we are going to be discussing the mission of the Historic Port of Washington Project and the upcoming screening of the Tulip Festival here at the Arts Council, June 9th. So, the Historic Port of Washington Museum Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a dedicated team of volunteers who work to preserve and share the history of Washington, North Carolina with the public. The Historic Port of Washington Project's purpose is to educate the public about the need to preserve Washington, including having goals to establish a permanent downtown site as a local history center. And what are the plans for the History Center?
The History Center, the plan is to find a location in the city, a city-owned building, because this is a city project. And Stephen Farrell is the reference specialist at Bridal Library, and he is the lead on the project. Stephen's also vice president of the Historic Port of Washington Project. And, we're trying to find a location where he can have more workspace, a place to store and catalog documents, and also to store and to restore and catalog artifacts that relate to the history of Washington.
And can you tell us the significance of the Tulip Festival?
Well, the Tulip Festival, I'll tell you a little bit of the history of it.
Yeah, of course.
That'll help. Let me look here for just a second. Tulip Festival was started in 1937. There was a lady named Olive Rumley who was she wrote a column for the Washington Daily News, and she was sitting in her office on a rainy day, April 25th, 1936, and looking out of her window across the street, which I think they were on Main Street, on Market Street down here, not too far from where we are right now at the Turnage, and she saw a group of Dutch settlers who had come into Beaufort County and settled in an area called Terracea, and they were growing tulips, and she saw them selling tulips out of the back of a truck, and in her column she wrote, Miss Olive, in her column that day, her name was Miss Olive, "Can't we set aside a day for the selling of tulips?" And somehow or other, she said, "I can visualize the tulips displayed on city streets with boys and girls dressed in Dutch costumes going in and out of the folks who have gathered in our town. Along Main Street, I can see windmill scenes in merchants' windows where merchandise is displayed." Well, that column inspired a group of people in town, some of the leading citizens of the town. Lee Togo Wynn, Togo was his nickname, Mayor Ralph Hodges, Edmund Harding, and Dr. A.T. Jeanette. Dr. A.T. Jeanette was, I think, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. And so they made it their mission to get support from the different clubs in town, civic clubs, and people out in the county to have for the idea of having a festival.
Right.
And the first festival, Tulip Festival, started on April the 6th, 1937.
Wow.
The families from Terracea who first were involved in the development of the Tulip Festival were the Hugendorns and the Van Dorps. They were some of the Dutch settlers out there in Terracea.
Wow.
The annual Tulip Festival was held each April, and it was an event that, it lasted from 1937 to 1941. And it ended after 1941 because you know what happened in the December 7th of 1941. We entered World War II,
Right.
and that brought an end to the Tulip Festival. There was an effort, I think, in the 1980s, to start it again, have it again, and it lasted for a couple of years, but I don't think it was ever as enlarged. The scale of those in the 1980s wasn't quite anywhere near what it was in the 1930s.
Right. And so, as far as a lot of the Dutch settlers, I mean, are some of them still here? Is there still some heritage here?
Oh yes, definitely. They're definitely the families are still living out in the Terracea area, and they're still in growing some tulips, but mostly they're just into farming and growing truck vegetables, truck crops, and but nowhere near where they don't have the acreage of tulips as they had in 1930s.
Right. Do you ever think it would be possible to get to that point again? Or you think it would? Probably not.
No, I don't think so, because we talked to. Let me make sure I'm quoting
No, you're fine.
the right person here. We talked with Bill van Stalendijnen, and he is a one of the Dutch settlers out there. He came to this country after World War II, so he didn't experience the Tulip Festival, but he did work in Terracea in the growing tulips and so forth. And he told us that it's just not economically feasible now. A lot of the tulips are imported, and they can't, they just can't make a living growing tulips.
Right. Well, in addition to the tulip screening, what else will you be exhibiting for the month of June?
We're going to have an exhibit space here at the Turnage with some of the costumes from original costumes of the individuals who participated. We're going in that exhibit. We're going to have a couple of people who actually participated in the Tulip Festival as children, and they're going to be available to talk to people, the public, before we actually show the film.
Wow, awesome. And Bronté, will you tell us what the Arts Council will be exhibiting here through the month of June?
Yeah, through the month of June, we'll be exhibiting a collection of wedding dresses that was donated from the community pre-COVID. So there are several members of the community who are interested in seeing those wedding dresses on display. So we're excited to finally put them on display in our main gallery. We'll also be exhibiting some contributions from the Underground Railroad Museum and the Brown Library. Stephen Farrell is going to be donating some wedding dresses. So the Turnage Theatre will just immerse you in history, and you'll be able to experience a lot of artifacts and textile history while you're here and seeing the Tulip Festival. The Beaufort County Arts Council will be exhibiting a collection of wedding dresses and artifacts donated from members of the community. Tying the Knot, Textiles and Tales of Our Matrimonial History. This exhibition is meant to celebrate the wedding dress, which is a symbol that embodies themes of femininity and love. This exhibition includes contributions from Stephen Farrell, genealogist of the Brown Library, and Lisa Jones, executive director of the Washington Waterfront Underground Railroad Museum. Join us for the reception on June 21st from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. The exhibit will be on view through June.
Ray, what is something that you want the community to know about it?
Well, we are active in the community. We sponsor historic talks at the estuarium. We do those quarterly and more frequently if there is a need to do it. We bring in people who are experts in their field. We've had several times we've had folks from the East Carolina University Maritime History or Studies program over there. Some of the professors and some of the graduate students. We recently had a graduate student there a week ago talking about her thesis where she's studying the underwater structures around Castle Island.
Oh, wow.
And and some of us will do lectures and so forth. I did one there that seemed to have a lot of interest in it. It was the Washington waterfront then and now, where I went back and showed how the waterfront in Washington had changed over the years. And in July, Stephen Farrell from Brown Library is going to do one on Charles Gallagher, who is a very interesting character during the Civil War, and he was a doctor here after the Civil War, and but Stephen has done a lot of research on him, and I'm looking forward to hearing that. Other things we do is we encourage folks, if they have any interesting, we're trying to get people to look in their family collections for documents or diaries or Bibles that we can preserve. That so if anyone doing any research on the history of Washington or the families, the genealogy of families in town, we can preserve those and make them accessible through Brown Library or the History Center when that begins. And we've got a group here called the Pamlico Historic Detectorists. I think that's the name. It's a new group. There are some metal detector enthusiasts who are HPAL, Historic Port of Washington Project volunteers, and they're going around in the community talking to folks, especially in the historic district, about going into their yards and actually doing metal detecting and looking for artifacts that would never probably ever come to see the light of day. And we're not doing it because we're trying to collect them and we're trying to sell them or any of that. We're trying to preserve them, and the homeowner has the opportunity to keep the artifact if it's something that they think is valuable and they want to keep for themselves, or they can donate it to the History Center or the Historic Port of Washington. And what prompted that was there were some outside folks coming from other parts of the state doing metal detecting in town and then taking our artifacts somewhere else. So that's the purpose of doing it, and they're doing it very professionally and trying to educate the public and so forth.
And where can someone in the community find out more information about HPAL or even the metal? You know what I'm saying? The detector. Yeah, the detectorist. Yeah. Well, we have a Facebook page, the Historic Port of Washington Project, and we post videos and art and other posts there, and whenever we're having an event, we publicize it there, and we're going to probably have some link. We're going to put up some links about the Detectorist Project. Okay.
And so they could find out more about that.
Perfect. Awesome.
Take a step back in time on June 9th at 1 o'clock p.m. as we screen the Tulip Festival Parade of 1939. This vintage film was recovered in the Brown Library and fully restored by the UNC Library Services. Ray Midgett, president of the Historic Port of Washington Project, has updated the film with names of bands, floats, and recognizable names of people from Beaufort County. This film also includes commentary which details the history of the festival more specifically. Donations are encouraged in support of the Historic Port of Washington Project in increasing their ability to make Beaufort County's history accessible to its residents. To purchase tickets, visit artsofthepamlico.org/events. Tickets are $15 online or at the door.
And what is HPAL's goal in sharing the Tulip Festival footage with the community?
Oh, we want everybody to see what a fabulous event that was. There were tens of thousands of people who came to see the Tulip Festival, the parades, and so forth. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even mention earlier that they did there. Can I share that with you?
Of course, yes.
It was a 2-day event, and they had a parade on the opening day. In that parade, you had some dignitaries talking and speaking. There was a baby parade. There was a pet parade.
Oh, wow.
And there was a boat parade along the waterfront. They held street dances. There was a field day out at Kugler Field, which is in the eastern part of the town. That was field day was for the high schools here in the county. Lots of speeches. There was a ball at the old armory on East Main Street near Jacks Creek. And there were activities out at the Washington Field Museum, which is commonly known as the Bug House, which is where the Bug House Park is today. And in those parades, on the second day, there were at least eight high school bands. I know in 1939, there were bands from, I've got a list here somewhere. Edenton High School brought bands. Elizabeth City, Robertsonville, Washington, of course, Belhaven, Plymouth, Columbia, and Kinston all had marching bands in that event. The crowd size on the second day, which is when most of the activities and the floats and so forth in the parade, they estimated the crowd size here in Washington to be about almost 20,000 people. So in the movie, you'll see the crowds. It's just amazing to me to see how many people were here. And they said it took 2 hours to drive from Greenville to Washington because of the traffic.
Yeah.
So.
And for those who don't know, it's really only like a 35-minute drive, maybe 40.
Right. And what we want to do is say, look at how the community came together and put on this event.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Washington City event. It was a Beaufort County event. Yeah. And it was an Eastern North Carolina event because you had participation from all those high schools from all over the eastern part of the state. And also, it was a statewide event, pretty significant because the governor came here. The governor of North Carolina came a couple of times, and lots of other dignitaries were here during those events. So it was pretty important.
And I think an impressive fact that you shared with me when we were screening it privately was when you had mentioned that all the parents that were involved, all the mothers that were involved, made sure that all the children had costumes to wear. Every single child had a costume to wear. I thought that was so impressive considering how many people were a part of the parade.
I've got some information here about that if I can find it here. There was a Works Progress Administration sewing room in town. That WPA, that was a New Deal program during the Depression. And the women who were doing the work there, that for the first year they made 95 costumes for the children who couldn't afford to have costumes. And then the second year they made 70 more. And then they would keep them every year and pack them up, and then they would distribute them to the kids so they could all march in the parade. But every single child, every single adult, everybody that was in the parade or participated had on Dutch costumes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. What ways are you planning to engage the community with the Tulip Festival film footage?
Well, we're going to speak whenever we have an opportunity. Whenever we're given a talk, we're going to talk about the Tulip Festival and what it is, what it was, and perhaps show a little bit of that in a trailer so that people can have some idea what they're going to see. And we're going to do it online, of course, through Facebook and our website. We have an email distribution list, and we're going to send that out through our contacts.
Perfect. And we read that the footage was recorded or recovered by the Brown Library. Can you tell us about the recovery process?
Yeah. I'm on the board of the Brown Library board, and so I've spent a lot of time there over the years, and being a history buff that I am, I spent a lot of time in the history room, and I knew the film was there, and one day I picked it up. This was before Stephen came to Washington. And I looked at it and I said, I wonder what this is. And I opened it up, and it smelled really strong. You could tell the film was deteriorating. It was a 16 millimeter film. And I said, somehow we've got to preserve this. And then Stephen came to Washington, and we struck up a friendship. And I spent more time there, and I said to Stephen, we got to find out what's on here. And I had for years been looking for a 16 millimeter projector. They don't exist hardly ever anymore. And I was a high school teacher for a while, so I had a lot of experience with 16 millimeter projectors back in the day. And so I asked around, I couldn't find it. And then Stephen, of course, his association with the library, he got on the phone and called around to different libraries, community libraries in North Carolina, and found one in Wilson. So he got in the car, drove up to Wilson. They loaned it to him, brought it back. We put it on the projector, and when we started watching it, we went, "Oh my God, we've got to get this preserved in some way. We've got to capture it somehow." And so I got on the phone again and found out that UNC Library, Wilson Library, would digitize it. They told him that if he could bring it up there the next day, they could get it done at no cost. So he got in the car and went to Chapel Hill, and in a few weeks they had it digitized. And that's when we looked at that, we thought, oh my gosh, the quality of this is really, really good. We need to share this. And so that's how that project started.
And we were so happy,
cool story,
right? Yeah, I mean, we're so happy that the community is going to be able to view it, and we're really excited to watch it.
I'm excited too. I'm excited about our partnership with the Arts of the Pamlico and the Turnage Theatre to be able to do that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Us too.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. The Historic Port of Washington will be screening the Tulip Festival June 9th at 1 p.m. here at the Turnage Theatre. Don't miss the opportunity to go back in time. Is there a creative child in your household who may be interested in a summer art camp? Well, this summer, the Beaufort County Arts Council and Beaufort County Community College are working together to offer an array of arts opportunities for youth in Beaufort County. This includes week-long classes and workshops for youth to experience a variety of arts opportunities. From visual arts camp to stagecraft and even stage performance, the opportunities are endless. For more information, visit artsofthepamlico.org/events. To register, call the Beaufort County Arts Council at 252-946-2504. Again, that's 252-946-2504. Thanks for catching this episode of Artcast presented by the Beaufort County Arts Council. Stay tuned for a new episode released each month.